Hi everyone, I'm Sean Duhamel from the Mass Retirees Association. Today is Friday, March 6th. Thank you for tuning in again to our weekly video update. This week, I'm going to highlight one of our important bills that we're trying to pass during this current legislative session. The legislation would increase the number of hours that a retiree here in Massachusetts is allowed to return to part-time public service. But before I get into the details of that, let me update you on a couple of other important things that are going on with Mass Retirees. Next week, our association president, Frank Valeri, and I are going to be down in Florida for our annual Gulf Coast area meetings. We have two meetings in Florida next week. The first being on Wednesday, March 11th at 11 a.m. at the Bonita Springs Estero Elks. It's right on Coconut Road in Bonita Springs, Florida, which is just north of Naples and just south of Fort Myers. So if you live in that area, the meeting gets underway at 11 a.m. We try to have you out the door on the way home before 1 o'clock. And that includes a Q&A. The way these meetings are structured, if you haven't been to a meeting before, I'd ask you to come, at least try to come to one meeting. We love getting out in the field. There's nothing more important for us, all of us here in the office, to get out in the field, meet with our members, look you in the eye, hear about your concerns, your complaints, your problems, just hear directly from you. It's a great way to learn more about the things that are important to you as a public retiree. So we take it very seriously. We have 16 or 17 of these meetings every single year. All but 3 or 4 of them are here in Massachusetts. But we try to get down to Florida a couple of times a year. Back in January, we were on the East Coast. This month, we're on the West Coast. We have 4,000 of our members that live year-round down in Florida. And thousands more of you are snowbirds visiting Florida right now and getting out of the winter, although we really haven't had much of a winter here in Boston. Today it was almost 50 degrees again here in the city of Boston. So it's been a great winter. Hopefully that continues. But again, Wednesday, we're in Bonita Springs, 11 a.m. start time. Thursday, we're up in Largo, Florida, which is just right outside of St. Pete. Again, 11 a.m. start time. Frank and I will be at the meeting before it starts and after it ends. If you have something that's personal that you want to talk to us about one-on-one, we'll stay there as long as it takes to answer everybody's questions and make sure that we're addressing the things that are important to you. So again, come on down. Feel free to bring a guest. Bring your spouse, bring a friend, bring a fellow retiree who's not yet a Mass Retirees member. Bring them on down, show them what we're all about. And again, this is for you. It's an important part of our job, and we want to make sure that we're accessible. The other important news is that as of today, we have 135 co-sponsors on HR 4540. That bill, that federal bill, of course, is our proposal filed by Congressman Richard Neal of Springfield to reform the windfall elimination provision. We continue to build support. We continue to head toward what we hope is a resolution, or at least a step in the right direction of putting more money in your pocket if you have been harmed by the WEP. And we will provide more information as it's available, but work continues on a daily basis to move this legislation forward. And we're very hopeful that we can get a bill at least through the House of Representatives, if not through the Senate, during the current congressional session. And we are leaving no stone unturned in our attempt to do so. But just as importantly are the different things going on here in Massachusetts relative to legislation. Several of our bills, as we have been reporting over the past couple of weeks, several of our bills have advanced beyond the Public Service Committee and are at various stages of the legislative process. The one I'd like to talk about today, again, is increasing the number of hours that a retiree is allowed to go back to work part-time. Now, this has become an issue that's become more and more important with our members as time has gone on. In modern society, it's pretty common that retirees or people in general are working later in life. There's a lot of reasons for that. Some of the reasons are financial, but most importantly and most commonly, it's because people want to continue to contribute something. People like going to work, at least on a part-time basis if you enjoy what you're doing, and contributing your knowledge and your expertise and just all of the decades of experience that many of our members have accumulated over very long careers. And I know that many of you held jobs, for instance, for the highway department or the local water department, working on equipment that there aren't a lot of people who have the type of expertise that you have. And going back to work part-time and being a resource for your local community while at the same time making a little bit of money isn't a bad thing. And we want to encourage people to do that, and we want to make sure that the system is equipped to handle it and it's not cumbersome. Well, the current system is overly complicated. Again, you are allowed to work, but with restrictions. And by the way, this only applies to a government job here in Massachusetts. If you work in another state, or if you work for the federal government, or if you work in the private sector, you can do whatever you want. If you are a regular superannuation retiree, there are no restrictions on working in those other entities. The only restriction that takes place is if you are working here in Massachusetts for the government in Massachusetts at either the state or the local level. And the restriction is pretty simple. It's hours and the amount of money that you're allowed to make. You can make the difference between your pension and what your former job currently pays, plus an additional $15,000 on top of that. Now, we just increased the hourly limit about 6 or 7 years ago. So increasing it again is not in the cards right now. It's something that eventually we would love to do, because of course we want to help you earn as much as you're capable of earning. But there's going to always be some type of restriction in that, because we're talking about government jobs and taxpayer dollars. You contributed your part toward the pension, but the government, through taxpayer contributions, paid for their share. And because of that, there's going to be a restriction on going back to work. Now, the second piece of the restriction is the hourly restriction, which today is 960 hours a year. That comes out to an average of about 18 and a half hours a week. So it's not very much time. 18 and a half hours a week really isn't even a part-time job. What we are proposing is to increase the limit to at least 1,200 hours, which comes out on an average to be 23 hours a week, which seems to be a level that many of you would be more comfortable with. We get calls all the time from members who feel that 18 and a half hours is too little, you want to be able to work more, or you've applied for a job and have been turned down for that job because you can't work enough hours that the job requires you to work. So all those things considered, it's obvious to us that we need to increase the hours. Now, we were able to pass 2 years ago this same bill. It was part of the budget back in 2018. Governor Baker at the time disagreed with increasing the hours. He ended up vetoing the legislation in the budget in August after the session had ended, and we did not have the opportunity to override his veto. Since then, we refiled the bill. It's House 2213, filed by Representative Mark Cusack of Braintree. Representative Cusack is a very good friend of our association. He is also the House Chairman of the Joint Committee on Revenue, very important position in the legislature. He is a key member of Speaker DeLeo's leadership team, and we are very, very well represented on this issue by Mark Cusack. The hope is that we can advance this bill through the spring and very early summer to get it back to Governor Baker, who, by the way, we have been working closely with his administration. Just a few weeks ago, we met with Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito personally. This was one of the issues we discussed with her. So we are hopeful that the governor and the Baker administration can look more kindly on this issue this time around than they did 2 years ago. But at the very least, we want to get the bill to the governor early enough in the process that should he veto it again, we have time to override his veto. Now, we know that we have thousands of public retirees who have chosen to go back to work part-time. So this is an important issue for many of you, and it's something that we feel that we can get done this year. We're putting the full court press on to get it done, along with several other bills that we're working on, which I will be providing updates on that legislation or other legislation on future issues of our video updates on Fridays. But for now, We're going to sign off for today. Thank you again for all the support that you give our association. If you have a comment or a question, you can always leave it in the comments below. If you're not following or sharing a couple of things. Share this information on your own Facebook page if you're on social media. That helps us grow our audience and educate other retirees and active employees out there. Also, please make sure that you have liked the page. In the bar right below this video is the like button. Please like the video and like our page. Visit the Mass Retirees Facebook page and like it. And if you're watching this through YouTube, you can subscribe and follow along our YouTube channel. We want to try to reach you as many ways as we possibly can. But again, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back to you next Friday, which is Friday the 13th, with our weekly update.